All schools have events that many people may attend, be it book fairs, carnivals, sporting events, and those alike. Event organizers have a duty of care to provide a safe environment for all guests. Good emergency planning means being prepared in advance and ensuring that safety is a priority throughout the event. Have a plan for the what-ifs and always coordinate with your local first responders. For more information on event planning, contact the Office of School Safety and Security by either phone or email, or visit our page at the Department of Education website.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Lynch with the State Department of Education Safety and Security Office, and I'd like to thank you today for joining us on our presentation of event planning. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Scott Dean with the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office, and I had the privilege of getting to ride around with him during one of the biggest events that the state of Oklahoma offers, and that was the Tulsa State Fair. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Scott Dean.
Hello, my name's Captain Scott Dean. I'm with the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office. I've been at Tulsa since 2006. I spent time all over the agency. I've worked in the jail, patrol, investigations, internal affairs, and since 2015, I've been in charge of the Tulsa State Fair, or the Sheriff's Office operations at the Tulsa State Fair. And if you've ever been to the Tulsa State Fair, you have experienced a high concentration of people in a very small area, and we do that for about 11 days. I also do emergency management operations for the Sheriff's Office. I was basically the Sheriff's Office representative in the Emergency Operations Center during the 2019 flood and various other events over the last couple of years. So I've got a little bit of experience in events and how they can affect an operation and how to hopefully since we've had a pretty good success in those events, that our operations planning has been sufficient.
What is event planning?
So event planning, a lot of people think that event planning is a lot more elaborate than it actually is. Basically, to do effective event planning, in my opinion, is to making a conscious effort to imagine the worst possible scenario that you can come up with, and then trying to figure out how to mitigate the effects of that scenario as much as possible, with the understanding that you're not going to be able to prevent everything. You're not going to be able to prevent things that are weather events, people with the intent to cause us harm. You cannot prevent those things. However, you can harden the target, as they say. If you can identify a potential threat and then take steps to mitigate that on the front side, or at the very least to have a plan in the event that that does happen, then your whole event is much better prepared for whatever may come. And I've also found if you tend to over plan, in the sense that you plan for a flood, but you get a heavy rainstorm, you're usually a lot better off because your planning will hold up for lesser events. One of the things I tell folks is that you need to create a written operations plan to outline your efforts. This is not a how-to manual. In the event of an emergency, you don't pull out the big book and turn to page 7 to figure out what you're supposed to do. The way I phrase an operations plan is basically it's a breakdown of all the relevant information, and you distribute that to the relevant stakeholders. It's a briefing in a binder. It's not a what to do in case of manual. The other thing about that is that this is a discoverable document. In the event that something horrible does happen, and they come to you as the event planner and say, "Okay, what did you do to plan for this, or what steps did you take?" You pull out your operations plan and say, "Well, as you can see here on page 3, we planned for the event of inclement weather, and we took these steps to mitigate that, or to inform our attendees and our staff to appropriately handle whatever that incident was."
What groups need emergency training at events?
Groups that need emergency training at your events are primarily those responsible. those responsible for the event, like the organizers, your major participants, your support staff, those that are responsible for the venue, the building that you're having your event in, your building maintenance folks, your security folks, and in general, anyone you can get the training to that might be there, your concession stand folks, your ticket takers, your ushers, anybody that's going to be a part of your overall staff or assisting, volunteering. The more of those people that you can get incorporated into your plan and make them familiar with what the emergency procedures are, in the event you have a major incident, those people are going to be part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem. And I use the example of your concession stand folks. Something happens and you have to evacuate, your concession people know where the emergency exits are and which way everybody's supposed to go. They come out of their stand and they say, all right, let's go this way. And they will take people with them because they're in a type of uniform. Yeah, it's a concession stand uniform, but it's a representative of the event. And the more folks that are clued into that, the better off your event's going to be.
What are examples of events that would require emergency planning?
Every event that you have requires some level of emergency planning. If you're going to get more than a handful of people in a room, you should have some sort of emergency action plan. Now, that's also scalable. A small event needs a small emergency action plan. Every school does a fire drill. A lot of your potential emergencies can be handled with a fire drill. Some can't, obviously, but a lot of the things that you're going to need to deal with can be handled by leaving the building. So those types of emergency action plans can be scalable, and you can start with your basic stuff, and it doesn't have to, just because it's not a fire doesn't mean a fire drill won't work to solve it. So if you can take those things that people know how to do, they're used to doing, and put them in different and emergency action plans, regardless of the emergency, your plans can be integrated in, your existing plans can be integrated across a large number of things. Does that make sense? I talk about small events most small events are similar and a standardized EAP emergency action plan can work for many events. Think your parent-teacher conferences. A fire drill or your regular fire drills, if something happens while you're having parent teacher conference, your kids are going to know, oh, the fire alarm go off. Okay, all right, mom, dad, come on, we're going to go down here. We got to go outside. Now, larger events, they need larger emergency action plans. And then you get into special events needs. Like I said, that you have your FFA convention come into your area. There's going to be some specific things that you want to plan for those kind of events. I mean, you're bringing in large number of schools, large number of participants, large number of large animals. You need to have plans for what happens if one of those animals decides to go its own way, and taking into account the different things that could cause.
Who would you recommend school districts partner with in their planning efforts?
Every stakeholder they can get. Everybody that's going to be potentially involved in this deal, get them in early, talk to them, and get the information directly from the source. Don't assume that the visiting team is going to understand what your procedures are going to be. Try and get those folks involved in that early on. You want to bring your emergency services in early on as well. Most counties, most cities, and even a lot of school districts have emergency managers, and you engaging them at an early stage, they will help you craft your emergency plans, your emergency action plans, so that they can be as integratable as possible with the other agencies that are going to be responding or participating in this deal. Another group that you should partner with is your participant group leaders. Like if you've got an FFA convention, you're going to have a lot of different folks coming into that particular venue. Talking to those instructors early on and talking about what kind of folks they're going to be bringing, what kind of animals they're going to be bringing, what kind of concerns they have or special needs they might have, you can incorporate that into your plan. Like if somebody has a obscure allergy that you're not used to interacting with, and they have a student that this is a major deal, you put that in your plan, be aware of this, this, and this. Another thing, loop your PTA in. A lot of those folks are going to be at these events anyway. If they understand the plan and they understand and the scope of what you're trying to achieve, and they can also help you troubleshoot for things that you may not have thought of that that could be brought up and integrated into your plan as early as possible. The other thing you need to consider is parallel endeavors, as I call it. Say your soccer fields are in the airport glide path, or there's a power plant behind the gymnasium. If your venue is adjacent to things that could go horribly wrong and affect your environment, you need to talk to them early on. One of the things we're doing a full-scale exercise here in Tulsa County later this year, and it involves a chemical release from the water plant. Well, just north of the water plant is a whole bunch of soccer fields. And if that happens on Saturday morning when everybody's out there playing soccer, that's going to be a definite obstacle in doing evacuations and mass casualty management potentially. So if you're looking at what your event is, and you're thinking the worst case possible scenario, you need to look far and wide as well and look at the other things around you. Because just because it doesn't happen inside the gym doesn't mean that it can't affect the gym.
What lessons learned from your experience would you like those in the education field to know?
At some point, your plan will be tested by real world events. It's not an if, it's a when. Something bad will happen. And if you have not taken the steps on the front side, you will feel the effects on the back side. And when that does happen, you will be questioned by someone about what you did to prevent this. What did you do and what did you fail to do? And like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of things that you cannot prevent, but you can take steps to acknowledge and mitigate those efforts. And even if it's something that you can't mitigate, having a plan to deal with what if then. One of my favorite quotes is by a chemist, as you may have heard of, Louis Pasteur. And it says, chance favors only the prepared mind. The more you put into this on the front side, the better off you will be on the back side. This last year at the fair, every aspect of our emergency action plan and our operations plan was tested during the course of those 11 days. We had everything from weather to shots fired to we had to do an early evacuation because of the weather. And we had a lot of stuff happen in last year, and the stuff that we couldn't prevent, we mitigated it by our action plan, and it went off pretty well.
What would be your recommendation on informing guests or visitors to an event on emergency procedures and where they may find shelter?
First off, signage. It seems simple and low tech, but signage. And most public buildings are pretty good about that now, but where the tornado shelters are, emergency exits, things like that. Make sure that it's big and you can actually see it. And make sure that it stands out against your backdrop. And that way, because when you got to remember when things go wrong and people are close to panicking, they will do dumb things. And the more things that you can do to keep them calm, and if it's just something as simple as if it's a long hallway, putting a green line in the same paint as your tornado shelter signage that leads them to the tornado shelter, simple things like that. And there's a lot of studies out there about what signage can do for you, but signage is important. Utilizing your programs. I mean, if you hand out programs at an event, on the back of it or somewhere in the middle, put some emergency response information, where the exits are, things like that. You'll notice that if you go to a movie theater now, they have a little briefing before the movie starts now. about where the exits are and what to do if something happens. And that it's horrible that we've gotten to the point where that's relevant, but it is relevant and it will probably wind up saving people's lives. That's the thing, video messaging. Everybody's got a jumbotron nowadays. In your pregame stuff or intermission, take a moment to have somebody do a video message that says, "Hey, in the event of some sort of emergency, here are our exits." Another thing is utilize your public address system. In the event of emergency, you need to have somebody calm and understanding of the emergency plan to get on that PA system and start telling people what to do. And I hate to say this, but people are stupid. And if you don't tell them what to do, they will make something up on their own. And it's probably not what you want them to do. So you've got to tell them what you want them to do. Another thing is in the event of emergency, having dedicated personnel assigned to direct people. If you're having to do an evacuation, you need to have people assigned to direct them out of the building and out of the parking lot. Because one of the things that anybody that's ever had to direct traffic knows exponentially, if you got a whole lot of people trying to leave and through a choke point, they're going to get frustrated. And if they're scared on top of that, they're going to make some poor choices and put more people at risk. This is another good thing for ushers and ticket takers. If they know that in the event of emergency, that their job is to step out and start directing traffic or directing foot traffic, that's an important thing and for them to do, and you get something out of it too. You're in the event you have that evacuation, that's going to be one more thing to make people more calm and more likely to get out without having an additional injury. Another thing you can do is make sure that there's a section in your student handbook. I know kids don't read it, but whenever my kid came home from school and he brought his handbook, I would look through it just so I would know what was expected. PTA meetings, have a specific PTA meeting where you come in and talk to parents about it. You'll probably get more response to that meeting than some of the other ones. And then drills. I cannot stress that enough. And you're never going to get all the participants that you want at a drill, but if the students know what to do, that's one less factor that you have to worry about. So if you're talking about evacuating the basketball game, have everybody come in for an assembly and then have a drill about how we're going to evacuate the gymnasium. You're really limited only by your own imagination and your environment. But the more buy-in that you can get from folks on the front side to how they're going to, what they're supposed to do in an emergency, it's going to affect how they react in that emergency. And if they're prepared, they're not going to be nearly as panicky and they're not going to be nearly as prone to do something stupid. One of the things that we do in law enforcement, like when I'm training somebody in a field training scenario, we do what we call stress inoculation. We try and get them as stressed out as possible in this training environment. So when they have a real stressful scenario, their subconscious is like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. I'm used to this. They're conditioned to it. This is not a new thing, and the likelihood of them panicking is that much lower. And the same is true for the people in your care. If you can expose them to things as much as possible, you will be better off in your event planning.
How do you determine the amount of security needed for a particular event?
So you always need more than you have. So when you're determining what you need for your event, the first thing I would tell you is to engage professionals. You guys as are in the education world, you're not in the security world. So seek out people in that field to help you make that determination. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has just gobs and gobs of training. Glenn Moore with DHS, he will come out and help you do a security threat assessment of your facility or your ball field or whatever it is that you're trying to do, and help you make that determination. Another thing is engage your local law enforcement. Talk to them about what your event is and what they thing, because they're going to be, if you have a problem, they're going to be showing up at some point. Depending on your budget, you may be able to hire your local law enforcement to do your security for you. If you aren't able to do that and you do hire a private company, I would highly suggest that you seek out and vet a legitimate security company. They come in all shapes and sizes and all prices, but it's one of those things, you get what you pay for. So it's going to kind of depend on your resources, but even if your resources are small, there's some options out there for you. Another thing is you need to document what you need, why you need it, and maybe why you were turned down and by who turned you down. Because this is part of your event planning. You're not going to get everything that you want. That's just a given. We work in the public sector. There's never enough to go around, and we all understand that. But if you have a legitimate security threat and you're trying to address it and you can't, well, you need to put that in your operation plans. Yes, we understand this, and we're unable to do this, so we're doing this. I hope that makes sense. And then when you do get what security you have, arrange that security in such a way that they're not all sitting at one end of the building. I remember when I was in high school at the football game, all the cops and ambulance and everything were sitting down at the goalpost, hanging out. If something had happened on the far side of the event, they would have had a long transit to get to it. So you want to them spread out far enough to cover the entire venue, but you want them close enough to support each other. So you would want to have more than one team. And if you only got one team, you want them to be constantly moving. And you have to also remember, it's not just what they can see, but who can see them, because 90% of security is deterrent. If I'm showing up to your event and I'm wanting to disrupt it, and everywhere I go, I see somebody that's an event coordinator, security person, or somebody that's got their head on a swivel and keeping watch for what's going on, I'm less likely to try and do something because I'm more likely to get caught. One of the events that we had out at the fair this last year is that we had some juveniles that were out there doing some illegal stuff, and they were running, trying to escape us, and we were able to catch nearly all of them. And one of them even commented, says, "I was trying to get away, but everywhere I turned was one of you cops." And that's when you know that your coverage is good, is that everywhere they're turning, they're seeing somebody in uniform. One of the things at the fair specifically we have said for years is that you can't walk 5 yards down the midway without seeing a deputy. And that is one of the ways that we stay ahead of that level of population concentration, is that everywhere you look, there's probably a cop in that direction. If you don't see one in that 5 yards, you're definitely going to see them in 10 yards. And I would tell my guys, like, you've got to keep moving. You've got to be able to where people see you, because if they see you, they're less likely to do something dumb. And if they see you and they're not up to no good and they're out there to have a good time, they're going to feel better about bringing their kids out to do the event, because they have that reinforcement. Okay, well, somebody's here in case something happens. If they don't see anybody and things start to happen, that's not going to reassure them that this is where they want to be.
What strategies could be used to inform guests attending events that are unfamiliar with the facility?
Will also depend on the size of your venue, but again, signage, the programs that you hand out when they come in, video messaging and public address systems, dedicated personnel assigned to direct people in that event of that emergency. And that's also another good thing for your ushers and ticket takers to be involved in that. If you got somebody that doesn't know anything, the more people you have out there that do what's going on, even before you have an emergency, that's going to help manage your entire crowd. Media is another way of doing that, depending on what your market is. Television, newspaper, your Facebook page, your Instagram, all those social media things that you have. If somebody's coming from out of state to your event, they may start following that page just to see what you're putting out. So you use the methods that you have available to you to push that information out as much as possible. And you also want to do that in stages. You want to do it a ways before the event, and then the middle term, and then right before the event, you double down and push it out again. So that way it's had time to circulate at least a couple of times.
What is the mapping process you use for events?
And it's going to depend on your event. But what you need is a way for event staff to communicate locations. This is for responders, for lost versus found children, and it makes all of your communication easier and much more effective. One of the things when we have at the fair is, as anybody that's been to any fair, everything looks the same after a little bit. So key places is like where the roller coaster is or the big Ferris wheel. Those are landmarks that you can see from a while. One of the things that we do on top of that is we make yard lines. So you can figure out which end of the midway you're on and about where on that midway you're on, and then what side of it you're on, and then what's your biggest landmark that's close to you. And if you put that out over the radio, whoever's going to be coming to you says, okay, and they're able to think, all right, well, if he's at the 75-yard line and the zero's down here, the 100's down there, well, I know he's that way. And he's on the north side, or excuse me, he's on the north side, so he's over there by the big Ferris wheel. Okay, I know right where he's at, or at least pretty close. If you just say, I'm by the Ferris wheel, well, heck, half the time there's 3 Ferris wheels out there. So you need something that's going to be able to give you a pretty close cross street, if you will, of where you're at so that you can get resources into that person. Now, as I said, lost versus found children. Anytime you have a large scale event, you're going to have lost kids or you're going to find kids. And one of the things that we always tell people at our fair is that if you find a kid, you have a found child. If you find a parent that's lost their kid, you have a lost child. And that distinction and doesn't sound very important until you get 5 or 6 of them going at once. And you want to be able to differentiate between, all right, who do we have and who's still outstanding? This is one of the reasons why you want to have some of these codes in place, because if you are on radios, everybody listens to them. And if you're standing there talking and telling, and whoever's on the other end of that radio, all the things that are going on, everybody around you is hearing that same thing. So for like example, if you receive a bomb threat, you need to be able to communicate that you have received a bomb threat over your radio without saying bomb, because everybody around you is going to hear that and are going to completely lose their mind. So you need to take things like that into consideration. I mean, if you go to Walmart and you hear code Adam, that means that they have a lost or abducted child. Those kinds of things, they're simple, but if you prep them on the front side and all your responders and event and staff are keyed into those things, then the likelihood of panicking or overreacting is less. And another thing is remember to keep it simple. One of the reasons we use yard lines at the fair and divide it as zones is so everyone has a common denominator. And if everybody calls a thing something, don't change it, even if it's stupid. If everybody knows that the big yellow pylon is called Skippy, I don't know why it would, but if that's what everybody knows that big yellow thing to be called, don't try and call it something else, because that's what they're going to revert to whenever they're under pressure. I'm over here by Skippy. Okay, well now everybody knows where to go. So don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be GS-17 classified cool stuff. Keep it simple, stupid, because when they're under stress, that's what they're going to revert to.
How do you coordinate efforts and plan with your first responders for an event?
Start with your emergency managers. The reason why I say that is because that's what emergency managers are there for. You have incident command system, you have national incident management system, you have the national emergency framework. You have all these things created by FEMA and state emergency management for this very thing. There's gobs of information out there on how to do this, and it's free and it's available via the internet. But it's also it's like trying to wade through peanut butter. It's a little dry. So if you engage your emergency managers early, they can help you cut through some of that and get down to what you need and help you form those relationships and put people in your orbit that are going to assist you. If you don't have emergency managers, then I would start with your fire chief, your police chief, if your emergency medical services is head, or your sheriff's office, whichever is whichever one's the most prevalent in your area, or all of them, and talk with them directly. Say, hey, we've got this event coming up. Here's what we're afraid of. What can you do to help? What are your plans if this happens? One of the things we talk about all the time is active shooter. If you aren't talking to your local law enforcement about what they're going to do in the event of an active shooter, and you're just practicing in whatever it is that your policy is without them involved, that's not going to be effective, because they've got a plan, or at least I hope they have a plan. So those plans need to benefit each other and not being in conflict. The same thing for your EMS and your fire. They've got a plan on how they're going to respond, because they've trained it, they've built it, they've thought of this at some point. You need to coordinate with them, and you need to do it way before the actual event and way before the bad thing actually happens. I know a lot of times, a lot of school districts are really hesitant to bring law enforcement in for that kind of stuff for a variety of reasons, and I get that. But in the actual reality of what we're talking about, when the bad day comes, you want all your helpers on the same page. And they're all going to be coming. So you might as well get on the front side with them, be face to face with them, know who's responding, know the people, have a rapport with them, have an idea of what their capabilities are. And they will also be able to do the same with you, have an idea what your capabilities are. A lot of times everybody falls into stereotypes. Oh, they're just a bunch of teachers down there, or they're just a bunch of cops or a bunch of firefighters or whatever. If you get in the same room and you start talking about the things that you're worried about and how you can overcome them, a lot of that crap goes away, and you start developing a team concept that's going to be much more effective when something happens. The main thing that anybody that gets tasked with this should do is don't try and do it all by yourself. Seek out other people that got a stake in this deal. First responders is just one part of that. There's a lot of people in your organization and your district, or whatever it is, the scope of your organization is, that are going to be affected by this event, whatever it is, no matter how small or how large. If you don't engage them, then they're going to be making up their own thing. And the worst thing you can have is everybody having a different plan and everybody trying to go their own way. A lot of people have kingdoms and egos that they try and protect. This is one of those things where that has to be set aside, and everybody's got to come in on the same page. We can have egos on Monday, but right now we've got to do what we're supposed to do to be effective, because this is for a worst case scenario. And like I said earlier, it's not a question of if, but when something is going to go wrong. And the better plan that you have, the more successful you will be. And then once that is over and you've gone through and you've after actioned it and you looked at all the good, the bad, and the ugly, you restart your plan and you get ready for the next one. Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you will repeat them. And I encourage everybody that gets involved in something like this to seek out people. I mentioned DHS Glenn Moore. He is a wonderful resource for the state. And get with your emergency managers, get with your police chiefs, your fire chiefs, your EMS directors, and start talking. Because the sooner you do that, the sooner they're going to say, outstanding, how can we help? And if they don't, just keep working.
What is Riley's rule, and how does it affect schools?
All right, Steve, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and take this one. My name is Jason Gray, with the Oklahoma State Department of Education's Office of School Safety and Security. Riley's Rule is an update to the Riley Boat Ride Act. In 2019, a tragic event happened in Lexington, Oklahoma, where Riley Boatwright perished while playing football. The Riley Boatwright Act came about to assist schools in having a plan to get emergency medical services to their school in the case of a medical emergency. Riley's Rule is an update to the Riley Boatwright Act, adding more specific language as to what is required and not required of schools. The required action plan for Riley's Rule includes things such as maps, directions, contact information for emergency medical services, defining responsibilities for medical folks as well as school officials, includes a list of medical equipment available. It is to be distributed to all school officials involved in athletic activities, as well as academic and other extracurricular activities. And it requires it to be rehearsed annually prior to the start of any season with school officials and local emergency medical providers. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at the Office of School Safety and Security, or you can check out the website I have on the screen.
Again, I would like to thank Mr. Scott Dean for joining us today and answering many of our questions. We hope these are useful to you and your programs or your schools throughout the state. And just thank each and every one of you for joining us. And at any time that you have any questions on any concerns of safety, please reach out to us. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.